afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our daily live coverages. In times of regional uncertainty, the strength of a nation is measured not only by its ability to respond to immediate threats, but also by its capacity to keep functioning, to protect its people, maintain the essential services, safeguard critical infrastructure, and to preserve a sense of security and normalcy in everyday life. For the state of Kuwait, this responsibility has taken on particular importance amid the challenges currently facing the Middle East. As developments continue to unfold across the region, Kuwait's institutions have remained fully engaged on multiple fronts, strengthening national preparedness, safeguarding citizens and residents, securing vital facilities, maintaining electricity, water, and healthcare services, protecting food and supply chains, as well as ensuring the continued operation of the various government institutions. Behind that continuity lies a coordinated national effort. Security agencies, emergency services, healthcare, and state institutions continue to operate with heightened readiness, responding to immediate circumstances while preparing for different scenarios should the regional conditions evolve. Over the next hour, we will turn our attention to these institutions working behind the scenes to keep the homeland moving. We'll examine how vital sectors are operating during such exceptional circumstances, the measures being taken to protect essential services and national resources, and how coordination across the state is strengthening Kuwait's ability to withstand pressure, adapt to changing conditions, and to continue serving its people. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin right now. While the headlines remain focused on developments unfolding across the Middle East, another story is taking place behind the scenes here in Kuwait, one of readiness, coordination, and continuity. Across the country, state institutions are working to anticipate challenges before they emerge, securing vital resources and infrastructure, and ensure that essential services continue without any disruption. Let's take a deeper dive in this report.
At a time when regional tensions have placed extraordinary pressure on national systems, Kuwait's response has extended far beyond the security front. Across the country, state institutions have activated emergency and continuity plans designed around this central object, keeping Kuwait functioning. From hospitals and schools to electricity, water, and food supplies, government agencies have worked in coordination to protect citizens and residents, preserve essential services, and maintain stability despite the exceptional circumstances surrounding the country. In the education sector, protecting students while preserving the right to education became an immediate priority. Following the escalation earlier this year, Ministry of Education shifted public and private schools to distance learning, with classes continuing through Microsoft Teams across the different educational systems. The ministry affirmed the measure was taken in coordination with relevant state authorities to safeguard students, teachers, and administrative personnel, while ensuring that the educational process could continue under approved academic plans rather than being brought to a halt by the regional situation. Ensuring food security and the uninterrupted movement of essential goods has formed another pillar of the national response. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry confirmed that strategic stocks of essential food commodities remain at reassuring levels and that supply and distribution chains were functioning normally. Moreover, cooperative societies across Kuwait's governorates have also remained operational, with the Ministry of Social Affairs maintaining daily oversight of supplies and monitoring strategic stocks through its central control room. Perhaps among the most demanding responsibilities has been protecting Kuwait's electricity and water systems. Following attacks on power generations and facilities, technical and emergency teams from the Ministry of Electricity, Water and Renewable Energy worked alongside the Kuwait Fire Force, security authorities, and other state bodies to contain fires, secure affected facilities, and restore generating units. Operational and emergency plans were immediately activated, with technicians working around the clock to monitor the national grid and preserve the continuity and stability of electricity and water services. Taken together, these efforts reveal a broader dimension of Kuwait's response to the current crisis. National resilience is not demonstrated only through defending borders and airspace. It is also demonstrated in a hospital remaining ready, a student continuing an education, a cooperative society remaining supplied, and electricity and water continuing to reach homes. Through coordinated emergency planning and the dedication of thousands of public sector employees working behind the scenes, Kuwait's institutions continue to demonstrate that even under exceptional pressure, serving and protecting the people remains at the heart of the state's mission.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. To help us further examine the developments in greater depth and better understand the implications for Kuwait, particularly from an economic and financial perspective, we're honored to be joined in the studio by leading economist and financial expert, Mr. Nader Abeid. Mr. Nader, thank you once again for joining us here in the studio, sir.
Pleasure is mine.
Let's begin with your view. Could you briefly give us your interpretation or analysis of the overall economic condition globally?
First of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Talking about the situation here in global economy. For the last 6 months, we saw in the beginning military action in a way and conflict between Iran, Israel, the States. Then we moved to another phase where we see nuclear talks about in Iran. Then we moved to a third stage where defreezing assets for Iran. Then we moved to Strait of Hormuz, and now we are talking about tariffs, and now we are talking about logistics and inflation within 6 months. Mm-hmm. Nobody can read that, let's say, chaos view unless we go one by one. Now, some economists will pay the price, especially now the countries that they are not well prepared financially to carry on for a certain period, because now everybody is talking about whether it's going to be finished within this year or next year or the year after. So this type of assumptions to encourage and force the governments to become professional, proactive in how to handle a crisis. Recession, we are not in a recession. We are in a phase of reshaping the global picture and the global economy, and we need to understand that the GCC area and market still one of the major players, whether other decision makers accept that or not, but I think we are the center. Why is that? Because we are in the center geographically. Mm-hmm. Second, the oil production within 3-4 areas, you are talking about Iran, Iraq, and the GCC collectively, we are talking about big percentage
about
overall.
20%, I believe, if not more.
With Iran and Iraq, we are talking about 25% of the global production, which is 100 million barrel a day. Okay, 25 million a barrel within this
a small
area
corner in the world.
So this is another challenge. Okay, other markets will pay for that in terms of, let's say, logistics, transportation, or the inflation. And the inflation is going to be reflected in that. On top of that, there is risk. Mm-hmm. Now, if we talk about reshaping, how can we say reshaping? Some countries, especially the GCC, let's say, they need to be encouraged to go with revisiting the objectives and putting another priorities for the coming period in terms of diversification. Mm-hmm. Because having the oil is not a luxury anymore, because if you have it, whether you can produce it or not, the other challenge, whether you can deliver it or not, what price you're gonna sell it for. Now insurance is going up. So many things are coming or reflected in certain products, going like this. And we move to another area. Now food security is another challenge within the GCC and the region here. How are we going to deal with it? Now, are we prepared for that or not? Now we are talking about, we say, the oil. The oil, okay, even the price goes up, okay, the challenge is not a profit center. There will be another cost added to it when we import our goods as end user. So many things. On top of that, now we see another area, which is the artificial intelligence and the technology. Now, this factor, the AI and the technology, became the main player for the economy, and who controls it, and even for reshaping the alliances. You see now the GCC governments are thinking differently to balance the relationship within so many big countries, big economies, end user requirements for what we have. So what do we see now? Each country gonna sit back and reassess the strength and the weakening that it has for the coming 5 years, whether we can survive or not. So the whole thing, we see it now, we are moving from geopolitical to geoeconomics, where every country and every decision maker gonna recalculate how much can I gain or I lose when I move forward for the coming let's say 1 to 5 years.
Okay. You do raise a very good point that it started off as a geopolitical, a military struggle, and as time passed, we've noticed the, let's say, military activities taking place are not having any real effect. We've reached a stalemate. No movement is taking place, and as you mentioned, this transformed into a geo-economic sort of reshuffling or reshifting. Now, because we are some of the largest oil producers, and in the chain of production, when it comes to jet fuel, chips, medicines, fertilizer for food, because of our sensitive position in this chain of production, what do you believe is the reshuffling that we need to see in the region, and how that will interact with the global economic system?
Well, the most important thing now, we need to convert certain sectors, certain activities into economic contributor. Now, since we have a good relationship with many countries with big industries, we need to work on having our own industries, even the light industry. This is one, whether it's military or healthcare or other places. This is a necessity become nowadays. Food security, I think we need to have this in mind, okay, as a priority within the GCC specifically. Now, even the oil itself, we need to think twice that instead of sending it as a crude oil, we need to maximize the benefit of that.
So creating the refined petrochemical products.
Of course, now we start, but I think our objectives should be much faster to convert it to that. Why? Because we need to diversify the economy in different directions. This is on top of that, we need to bring the private sector into our role as partners, not replacement. Correct. Why? Because we still rely on the oil itself as a Kuwait and some of the countries, but it varies from country to country. But in Kuwait, I think we need to reshape and finding new jobs. How can you find new jobs? By sharing the business, the objectives with the private sector. Now, how can we create jobs?
New opportunities.
We see now we are almost 500,000 employees within the government bodies. Okay, now we need to outsource certain activities, whether it's services, whether it's healthcare, whether it's even sports, military. You need to bring. Why we are saying that? Because the private sector can bring the best operator to do the job for us.
And it takes the pressure off of the government now.
Because of the budget. Now we need to reduce the expense for the salaries and subsidies. Within no time we have to work on that. This is one. Second, I need to outsource and try to buy the services instead of doing the operation from A to Z. This is very important. Mm-hmm. On top of that, even in education, we say education, you know that education and healthcare, okay, are taken almost 30% of our budget. So if we outsource it, at least we are reducing it at least to, let's say, 50%.
That would be
this
great.
Is a good start for that. Yeah. This is one. So, and finding jobs, because you see that when you reduce the number of employees within the government, you move them there and move forward at least to free some positions within the government body. And wear the hat of regulator. Now the job of the government should be a market maker, not an operator. When I say market maker, I create markets for the private sector, since I'm thinking of bringing foreign investors and foreign funds and foreign operators, internationally recognized. So I put the standards and then I accommodate. Why is that? Because there is what we call conflict of interest. You cannot operate and then monitor and compete with the private sector.
You can't be the referee and the player.
So this is a priority. It's not a luxury anymore. We need to think about it seriously. So reshaping our objectives for 2035, now I think it is important. Especially that when we reduce the budget or the drainage, let's say,
yes,
of that budget and fill the gap with the role of the private sector. This is very important of reshaping the whole thing, so whether locally or regional. And since we are working with our GCC neighbors, I think we need to complement each other in different sectors and different directions. This is a collective effort, can be from the GCC Council.
Now you raise a lot of very interesting points that we should address, but the last point you mentioned of regional cooperation with the different visions of the different GCC member states. Would you believe that, or would you support the idea of having a regional conference to align everyone's national vision to complement the others?
Well, we see the regular conferences or meetings. It takes place at least once or twice a year. I think with this situation, we need to maximize the benefit of exchanging views about how can we see things together. Now, definitely, we see that the most important thing is security, how to balance the security within the region, where we see now Saudi Arabia is doing the Mecca agreement, and at least this will lower the pressure from risk and military
It adds a level of deterrence.
This is one. Yeah. Second, we need to rely on how much would last our buffer zones of the sovereign wealth. We don't want to reach a point where, distressed asset, we will reach a point of liquidating good assets. Yeah. So luckily we still have a good room for borrowing. But the point here, borrowing without selling oil and maximizing the benefit of the price of the oil, I think
puts yourself in a trap, sort of.
Yes, in a way, I think we'll pay the price within the coming 2-3 years.
Now, you mentioned we must revisit and maybe reshuffle the priorities of our vision. For Kuwait specifically, what do you believe, and you've mentioned that agriculture is maybe the most key priority that we should have. And we did see earlier in this year that the government tried to support and encourage people to expand agricultural production in Kuwait. Leon, I'm sorry I keep getting carried away, but you mentioned a lot of good points about reducing the pressure on the government, because the main driver of our economy is oil and the government salaries for our citizens. But if we are able to move a portion of the employees into the private sector to take the pressure off of the budget here in the government and allow the private sector to spur and grow and attract more investments from outside, this would help us develop our national cadres, the people in Kuwait, and their abilities and skills to not just help the country, but also make it more attractive for other countries, other businesses to come get involved and to open joint projects, not strictly with the government, but with the private sector. So you're encouraging for more public and private ventures.
Yes. Well, the private sector, they have a lot of funds.
Mm-hmm.
They have liquidity. They are financially in very good position. And banks, luckily, banks have good liquidity and financial position. The government should take the advantage of that and encourage the specialized company to work on the agriculture and that line of activities. Why is that?
Healthcare or industrial capacities.
Let's take the agriculture in specific. Why? Because this is food security. Now, we have the National Fund for Small and Medium Enterprises. Why don't I bring big companies with big investors and give them good facilities to facilitate all the objectives and their works, provided I give you land, I support you, provided that you create business to the small and medium enterprises. Why? Because this is very important. Now you can bring, especially that the Kuwaiti youth are amazing. I dealt with them. They are creative. They are risk takers. They are very well, and they want to have good achievement because the self-confidence are there. Mm-hmm. So this is another area. Now everybody is talking about, let's say, now the seafood prices.
Ah, yes.
Why don't we have what we call the
fishery?
Farm fish farming and this kind of thing. This is very important for the entrepreneurs to enter that. Why? Because it will, first of all, balance the prices. There are certain fishing activities, it's seasonal, so at least we do that, and then I'm creating jobs for that. This is regarding the
fisheries,
the agriculture and food security. If we go to healthcare, let's say, okay, I can, instead of having that number of budget and workers, I can outsource. Why am I importing everything from outside, masks and certain things like this? I can create jobs for that. So the point here, the role of the government should be a facilitator, market maker, and and I can put certain conditions and standards. Why don't I put the requirements for the international operator, even in the oil sector? Mm-hmm. Okay, I can create refineries and put conditions that some of the business to go for the small and medium enterprises. This way I can create jobs and give a relief for the budget to stop the drainage on that. So this is those type of things. I think we should consider it within the 2035 yes. objectives, vision, but I think we need to speed up now the rhythm to execute that type of plans and that type of agreement, since we have the private sector engagement with the government. I think we should do that. So at least there are things need to be more clear to materials, and we need to have kind of measurement. Mm-hmm. You need to measure your performance, otherwise time flies.
You mentioned a great point of we need to sort of take the pressure off the government and spur the people here in Kuwait to carry the weight, almost becoming more autonomous, not so dependent on food from outside or getting meat from this country or medicine from this country. Create your own industrial capacity, provide for yourself so that if there is ever a crisis, you can stand on your own 2 feet and it isn't that difficult to deal with. Although this is a very difficult situation, an almost impossible situation. The government has done a great job making sure services run, food is available, medicine is available, people feel safe to continue their normal life. But we need to use this as an opportunity to be more prepared and more autonomous in the future. But I'm glad you mentioned the health sector, because we'll take a short break, take a look at this report, speaking specifically about development here in Kuwait, about the Ministry of Health and the American Mayo Clinic. Ladies and gentlemen, but beyond the economic implications of the current landscape, Kuwait continues to advance other vital sectors, with healthcare remaining at the forefront of the country's long-term development priorities. In this regard, the Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmed Al-Awadi, has discussed with a high-level delegation from the American Mayo Clinic ways to enhance joint cooperation in the fields of medical education, professional development, and the exchange of expertise to improve the quality of healthcare here in the state of Kuwait. More on that in this report.
Ministry of Health launched a specialized training platform for healthcare professionals in cooperation with the US-based Mayo Clinic, offering lectures by leading medical experts on the latest development in healthcare beginning August 18th. The initiative is part of Kuwait's efforts to strengthen international medical partnerships, promote knowledge exchange, and support the continuous development of healthcare services. The partnership provides valuable opportunities for healthcare professionals in Kuwait to benefit from Mayo Clinic's expertise across various medical fields, advance Kuwait's healthcare infrastructure, and supports the country's long-term vision for sustainable healthcare development. The initiative represents the first of several planned joint projects, with monthly lectures scheduled for more than 1 year to contribute to the continued development of Kuwait's healthcare system. The lecture series will further provide physicians in Kuwait with direct access to knowledge and expertise of Mayo Clinic specialists, and the program will feature a distinguished group of specialists and support the exchange of medical knowledge and expertise. In addition, Minister of Health Dr. Ahmed Al-Awadi met with the Mayo Clinic delegation to discuss ways to expand cooperation in medical education, professional development, and healthcare services. On his part, Minister Al-Awadi reaffirmed the ministry's commitment to strengthening partnerships with leading international healthcare institutions and utilizing global expertise to support the advancement of Kuwait's healthcare system, emphasizing the role of such cooperation in developing national medical capabilities, expanding continuing education opportunities, improving healthcare quality, and enhancing specialized medical services. The initiative builds on the efforts of the external health service sectors to transform international partnerships into practical programs that contribute to national capacity building through high-quality education and training opportunities.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue our interview with Mr. Nader Al-Ubaid. Mr. Ubaid, as you mentioned earlier, we need to create more of a public-private partnership, not to replace the government sector, but to assist the government and help us become more sustainable in our own systems. And we saw in that report just now about the Ministry of Health and the American Mayo Clinic. They've signed this cooperation agreement. How do you assess the significance of this partnership for our healthcare sector here?
Well, first of all, we're happy to see Mayo Clinic sign an agreement with the ministry. We did not go through the details of that agreement, but talking about improving skills, coaching, training, dealing with data and certain information, and consultancy, that role, it's good. But why are we still sending, as part of the Ministry of Health, as a budget, sending patient outside? What I thought of, what we thought, and what we need at least now to think seriously about this. Why don't we bring operators? Who will bring the operators? The private sector. Through private clinics or hospitals, okay, and I buy the service from them. Because what happened now, if the agreement only talks about training, so we did not tackle the situation of sending people abroad, because we are talking about almost 200, 250 million KD, a budget of sending patients outside. Now, why don't we think completely different? Since we have Mayo Clinic, we can bring another five Mayo Clinics. We don't want to, 5 Mayo Clinics in different, some of them for research, some of them for operation, different diseases. Why is that? First of all, it's a coaching process for your doctors, not theoretical. We are talking about
practical exercise.
This is one. Second, saving the budget that's sent, instead of buying the service from outside, I buy it from the local. And this is going to be reflected within the local economy.
Correct.
I create jobs through the private sector when they create national. What do they need, the private sector? If I invest and put a big investment to construct a big hospital and bringing an internationally recognized operator, am I getting a security and confirmation that the government will buy it from me? So this type of assurance, at least the government should confirm to the private sector, once they have that high standard, I can buy it. So this way you are improving the level of a quality of service and become the benchmark, so other operators can be within your level.
And they will seek you out and ask for your cooperation.
On top of that, now, why don't you become a regional hub for healthcare services? Especially that now Kuwait is thinking of having certain zones for specialized
medical practices.
Zones. Like the economic,
I see what you mean.
Medical. Why don't we create medical city?
Yes.
The
or
medical
an educational city.
Medical city, I can bring more than 5, 6, 10 operators, and then we can become a regional hub. Talking about a city, I think the maximum, 500,000 square meter to 1 million square meter is more than enough to bring at least 4 or 5 hospitals with big specialties. So then we are thinking of relocating the expenses, and instead of bringing or sending buying the services from abroad, no, I have it domestically. And this way, I can create, as a support for that, the medical supplies. Because when I create the city, I need to have certain small manufacturing
Yes.
and workshops to do that. So it is a project, a state project. We need to at least give it a serious thought, since we have one of the international
Recognize hospitals.
like Mayo. I can bring another players and become and sending message to the region that
We are moving in this direction.
so at least people will see you that you are the medical destination, okay, for any overseas, let's say, treatment. Or we see that now. Nobody thought that Thailand became now one of the well-recognized
Centers for medical
hub.
treatments. Yeah.
Now, Korea is the same thing. Since we have a good relationship, diplomatic relationship, I can deal with them. I don't want to bring, as a government, I can assign this job for the private sector. This is one. Second, if you see the budget, now, we don't want to, when we say, we don't want to say privatization, because people are scared of saying privatization. Why don't we have collaboration between the government and the private sector? Why don't the government at least outsource certain operation to lower the overheads? Now we have big, nice buildings as hospital, general hospital. Okay, the point here, I can outsource it and buy the service here and move my staff to the private sector and create things. On top of that, how can I create market? When we say market, since we are talking about healthcare in specific, now I can create the services not to buy it directly through insurance, okay, and bring more than Afia. You remember that was Afia.
Yes.
I can the miscalculation in Afia because it was monopolized.
Okay.
No competition.
Yeah.
When you create competitors, okay, here you improve the quality of service and reduce the.
Would you say it's more accessible to people because of the competition?
Yeah, and yeah, of course, and like with the communication sector, the communication sector, when was only we used to have one company, which is MTC, which is in.
Correct, yes.
Now we have three. You see, people. The same thing with the banking sector. Now with the competition, government doesn't have any ownership directly with the banks. So and the government is wearing the hat of a regulator. So this way, I create markets and become regional player. I think this is a good move that we saw the signing for Mayo Clinic, but I think we need to have good recognized operators to support the medical, especially that we have big number of beds. We have around 8,000 beds within the now building beds and extra facilities. It's good because these are assets.
Yes.
Now, why do I have to run? I can collaborate with the private sector to outsource it, and then the value of the assets as a building goes up. Okay, and on top of that, I'm outsourcing and creating markets to the private sector. This way is one of the, we say, reassessing our needs for the coming 5 years. With this situation, nobody knows how long it will last.
Correct.
The critical situation here. So at least the sectors that the private sector is ready, the private sector or the private sector is ready to take over, like what we did in education. The education, now we see around 15 higher education entity like college and universities.
Yes.
what the government is doing, they are buying the services from them. So they created a good
Ecosystem, let's
market
say.
for the private sector. Why don't I duplicate the same thing for the healthcare?
Or any
Or
section
any
of
sector.
the economy.
Yeah, so this is what we are saying now. I think it's about time to outsource certain activities to lower the expense and the budget, okay? Because now, no way we can keep up with just watching the price of the oil to go up just to compensate our losses.
Yes.
No way to do that. Now we need to reshape the whole thing and proactive vision for after what we saw with the current situation.
Part of this reshaping thing, and I appreciate that you brought up the point of instead of sending people abroad for treatment, which is an enormous cost, you can, and I don't believe push and pull factor is the correct term for this, but I'll use it for this example. You cut that cost of sending people abroad, and you open these facilities and practices here. You've reduced your costs here, you're gaining some profit here, you're spurring and driving the economy here, so that if there is a shock in the oil markets, you're not left empty-handed. You have something you can turn back to. If airspace is closed, you can no longer send people abroad, you have facilities here who are equipped with the equipment they need, the personnel they need, and the experience they need to address the needs of the people in the country here.
Of course. Since you are talking about even the healthcare, even that specific major medicine, specifically, the only entity can provide that seat is Kuwait University. None of the private sector is doing that. So now there is a limited capacity for accommodating this. You know how much it costs for the students annual in Kuwait for medicine
I don't know
for
the
1
number,
year?
actually, no.
According to the dean of the college of medicine, he said annually 100,000 KD. Imagine this when you send people abroad. Abroad, now you have 3 areas, whether it's in the Arab area, or in Australia, or UK and America. You know how much it costs for the person to graduate?
I want to say double, if not more.
Yes, to finish the 6 to 7 years for the students, we are talking about 300 to 500,000 KD per student. Why don't I reflect it here in the universities specialized in that? This is what we are saying now. The government should create markets and let the private sector accommodate that and take risk. Why? Because they can borrow from the banks. They have their own funds, and provided that you create the space and specialty and facilities to support them.
It's what you said in the very beginning of this interview. Stop the drainage that is falling out of our system. Instead of spilling liquidity and investments and money outside of the country, keep that money in this loop, in this economic system here.
Because if you don't do that, you are importing inflation. You are importing inflation.
You're correct.
Because you see now when you send the crude oil, it will be manufactured outside and loaded with so many extra
Chemicals
fees, insurance, risk, whatever, and then you import the inflation.
You're buying your product at a higher price now. So what did you do economically?
So this is another way of so I think it's about time now to think about it seriously.
Well, looking ahead, do you think Kuwait could position itself, and you did touch on this a bit, as the specialized center in the region for medicine? Let's say medicine for now, and let's say because it's difficult for agriculture here in Kuwait. I believe in one of our previous discussions a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how we could own farms in other parts of the Khalij. So do you think there could be that sort of, it's not a barter system trade, but give me the ownership and the rights to the farms in, let's say, Oman or Saudi or somewhere. And you can send your students here to Kuwait University so that instead of spending 300 or 200,000 KD for a single medical student, you have someone bringing their investment and their students, creating more opportunity for the exchange of expertise and a closer tie in the region as a whole. So do you believe, and you mentioned that we do have GCC meetings to discuss these things, and you were pushing for increasing the frequency of these meetings.
Well, now with the new technology, since we are talking about specifically the agriculture, okay, now indoor technology is becoming more effective in terms of cost and exposure, not to be exposed to the weather, okay, well, you need the weather, but since if there is restrictions or certain heat, or there are many ways from technology to accommodate that.
But it's called warehouse farming, where you have your
Yeah.
facilities indoor.
Yes, the
basically.
facilities. Now, even the space. Now they are becoming,
There are shelves. You don't need a wide
shelves, not a
area.
space.
Yes.
Since we are talking about, let's say, the fish farming, let's talking about shrimp farming, so many things you can do, okay, as part of the, what we call the food security and
Agriculture.
agriculture.
As well.
So we need to become proactive in thinking ahead. We don't want to stop in the challenges.
We don't want to react to things. We want to
And
be prepared for them.
Prepared, and we have research entities, like KISR and KFAS, and they can bring the right partner
Expertise. Okay.
to accommodate that type of let's say, approach. So we need to think, but at least we have to measure the performance of any topic, any objective, okay, we work on. We don't want to say that, okay, we want to accommodate certain things, but if you don't measure it and you don't have time frame to execute it, or you don't have the right execution plan, okay, still become a theory. So these type of things, I think we need to revisit. Now, talking about investment out of the region, yeah, Kuwait used to do that
A lot.
a lot. In Africa and Asia and so many. What's wrong with that? You still can do that.
Yes.
Like what we are doing now with the KBC, when they thought of having certain zones out of the region,
Yes.
just to minimize the risk in case something happened. So we need to create thinking, okay, with alternatives for any, which we are talking about now. Crisis management, okay, we are not here, but we need to be prepared for that. It is very important. It is very important.
Well, Mr. Nader, unfortunately, we've run out of time for our interview. I didn't even realize that the hour had passed this quickly. I'd just like to thank you once again for taking the time, shedding your opinion to the viewers at home about how we can adjust Kuwait's Vision 2035, how we can be better prepared and more autonomous, able to be more resilient to any future energy shocks, geopolitical crises, economic shocks. I appreciate the message that you're sending out to, hopefully, as many young Kuwaitis as there are watching this show, if they are. This is an important message for the future, and I do believe you're correct when you say that the youth is eager to want to work and want to try. And will create more opportunities for this public-private collaboration, not replacement, a collaboration.
I think. Thank you. First of all, at the end, thank you for having us. And I think it is the right time to think seriously about materializing these thoughts into reality.
Well, the coming weeks and years, hopefully it happens, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Nader Abeid, an economist and leading financial expert. And with that, that brings us to the end of our daily life coverage, closing at a time when the state of Kuwait faces circumstances that continue to remind us of something deeply important: the value of security, the strength of national unity, and the responsibility shared by all those working to protect the homeland and to preserve the lives and well-being of its people. Throughout these challenging days, Kuwait's institutions have continued their work with dedication and a clear sense of responsibility. Behind every measure taken and every service maintained are men and women working tirelessly so that Kuwait remains secure, resilient, and still moves forward. Behind every political development and every security update are people and families hoping for the same thing, that tomorrow will be calmer than today. We pray to Allah Almighty to protect our beloved Kuwait, its leadership, and its people, and to preserve its security, stability, and prosperity. We'll continue to follow these developments closely and bring you all the comprehensive coverages as the events unfold. From all of us here at KTV2, I'd like to thank you all for watching and joining us through these daily live coverages. And with that said, we conclude today's daily live coverage, but you can tune in for more news and updates in our main bulletin at 7 p.m. Till then, and as always, thank you for watching and have a good day.